Hello, this is Life Coach Angelia with the continuing of Works of Heart's Teen Pregnancy Life Coaching Program. We're on part 7. Last time we were talking about negative outcomes, so we're going to continue with that. The negative outcomes, both mental health and physical health in nature, that people have tracked are as follows. Behavior problems. Like I said, that's common with some teens anyway, but you add pregnancy to that. Yeah. School failure. Especially if they're under pressure from their parents to stop going to school, which I think is unfortunate. I feel like they should get to finish school, go into college, or whatever they're going to do. Poor physical health. They stop caring, and, they might even be purposefully not eating the right things or ingesting the right things because they don't want to be pregnant. Physical injury. Some people do themselves physical injury or, try to do the baby physical injury so they don't have to have the baby. Future pregnancies. Again, if they get pregnant and they have a child and it's okay with them or okay with the parents or whatever, it's more likely they're not going to care about having more. Drug use. Some people use drugs anyway, but some might start to not have to be pregnant. And AIDS, because, if they're not caring about, being promiscuous, having unprotected sex, which is, how they got pregnant, then they're at more risk for getting AIDS and other STDs. Risk factors. The following are 12 risk factors that create negative outcomes. Indicates a risk for 7 or 8 identified negative outcomes. And you need to tell your teen pregnancy coaching clients this because you want them to know. They already made this mistake. You don't want them to have, 5 other kids that they have to take care of and they can't. And, it's just a bad cycle that'll feed on itself unless there's intervention. And that's what the Teen Pregnancy Life Coaching Program is about, is intervening so that this person can have a better life in future. Community. Impoverished neighborhood. If they come in from an impoverished neighborhood, teen pregnancy is more likely. Community. Ineffectual social policies. If, their county or town doesn't really care about this section of the population, then it's going to be more acceptable. School. Poor quality schools. If they come from a poor quality school where they don't feel like they can get into college and, other job training things are not available, they might think, well, this is my future. As I said, I met a woman at one of the neighborhood places who is a 5th generation welfare person. And she was bragging to one of the workers, how she was, 5th generation, living on welfare all her life, and she didn't have no intention of getting a job because they was getting ready to change the rules on her. And I think that is absolute shame. Negative peer pressure and modeling. If other kids are telling them, who cares, just have a baby, you get money having a baby and all this stuff. Then, and if all the other kids are having sex and they're pushing them into having sex, then it's more likely they're going to become a pregnant teenager. Peer rejection. Again, if they feel like everybody else is doing it and they're not doing it, and other people saying, if you don't do it with him, I don't want to hang out with you. You're a nerd or whatever. Sometimes kids listen to other kids, and that's not good. Their family, a low socioeconomic status. If they grew up in a poor family, and they think maybe this is their only way out. I've heard stories of girls trapping their boyfriends, and they saw that as a way out of their, home and into a better life. It's not, so don't do that. Tell your clients not to do that. Family parental problems. Most teen pregnancies come from families where there's a parental problem. And that's, where I like to refer to a counselor. Like I said, you want to have a counselor as a referral source if you're going to be a life coach. So you can certainly refer them, because it all trickles down and children learn what they live. Family, marital discord. If the parents are fighting, and she feels like nobody loves her, nobody cares about her, and the boyfriend's like, "Oh, I love you, honey. I care about you. I'll take care of you." She's going to eat that up like honey. Family, punitive child rearing. If the family is, very abusive or uses punitive child rearing when it's unnecessary, again, that's going to create low self-esteem. And she's going to, this guy's going to say, "Oh, I love you, baby." And she's going to eat that up. Individual, early onset of problems. Like I said, some teenage girls, they have some mental health issues. They're not being taken care of, or they're not taking them seriously. And then they can end up in this situation. Individual problems in other areas. If they're not doing good in school, if they don't have a lot of friends, again, that affects the self-esteem, which, again, if somebody's coming on to them, this person likes me. I want to keep them in my life, so I'm going to do whatever, they want me to do. And stress at all levels involving the child or others with the child. If they're under stress at home, they're looking for escape. Common risks and protective factors. There are 8 factors to protect against negative outcomes. And these definitely you want to tell your clients. Community, following social norms. Okay, teenagers not big on following social norms, but you need to stress to them that if they want to fit in at college or their job or whatever, they need to, not be so fringy and, try to fit in a little bit. You don't have to conform like, cookie cutter people, but you want to fit in a little bit. Community, effective social policies. I have talked to members of our community who are in charge of different things and saying, why is this being overlooked? You can definitely promote that. And you can get your clients involved if they feel like they need to stand up for themselves. High quality schools. You can ask any of the schools my kids went to. I did not have a problem with coming to that school, talking to a teacher, a counselor, a principal, whoever it took, going to the school board, going to the state board, and then in the feds, if that's what it took to get a problem taken care of in my child's school. So, here you want to enlist some parents. If their child is getting, nowhere in school and their teachers don't care and everything, enlist the parents. The parents can make this difference. I mean, as their life coach, you're not the one to call and say, "Hey, you need to shape your school up. This kid," you're nothing as far as the school is concerned. They're not going to respect the fact you're their life coach. This is where the parents need to get involved. You need to talk to the parents about that. Positive peer modeling. They are going to want to have some decent friends. They're not going to want to hang around the friends who are just trying to get them in trouble, or who are miserable people trying to drag them down into the miserable level that they're in. Good parent-child relationships. Again, this is where that, counselor you have as a referral source can come in handy. Personal and social skills. They're going to need personal skills to navigate the world. They're going to need social skills to navigate the world. That's just a fact. Self-efficacy. They're going to need to be able to take care of themselves, because how are they going to take care of that baby if they can't take care of themselves? Social supports at all levels, and that benefit the child and others with the child, because anything they do, that benefits them is going to help them feel better about themselves and give them better self-esteem, and it's going to give their child a better outlook in life. Identifying kids at risk. For most youth, it's a change from prior functioning level. The individual serves as their own baseline, and that's key. However, some kids have struggled consistently or intermittently for many years. And for them, it's the overall longitudinal pattern that is most revealing. So you want to get background on them. How do they deal with this? How do they deal with this problem? And this can help you see where their deficits are so you can get them caught up before this baby comes. Adults and professionals are not necessarily adept at predicting who is likely to become violent or suicidal. That's unfortunate, but that is definitely true. Especially teenagers, they can change their mind in a moment, decide this is what I'm doing. And especially, if you're pregnant and full of hormones in a teenager, you can definitely decide to do things that are not good for yourself. But identification of at-risk children and youth by involved adults remains essential. If you suspect, if you hear something while you're talking, you need to talk to them. You need to talk to the parents and make sure this person stays safe. Identifying youth at risk is everyone's responsibility. Everyone's responsibility. Don't be the person guilty of not saying something. You want to get parents involved. You want to get teachers, if you can, involved. Guidance counselors, certainly. Coaches, you want to be involved. Their principal, etc. And their sports coaches, too, if they're involved in anything. Their instructional support team. Some schools have this, some don't. Members, if they're in an elementary school, there are girls 9 and 10 who've gotten pregnant, and that's a serious shame. But most of them are not going to want to deal with this. Student assistance team, and the staff, because they need the best outcome they can get. Resource persons in the community, you can, hook them up with a neighborhood place, where they can get WIC and, health insurance, hook them up with, you can have doctors. I have doctors, the referral sources, obstetricians and pediatricians. My page is stuck here. Okay. And their peers. Their peers can be a source of support for them if they're positive peers. Again, we don't want the detrimental ones who are dragging them down. We want the positive ones in their life. Some youth self-identify and seek support or referral proactively, and that's good. That's good that they do that, but not all of them are going to do that. Use of screening and assessment tools. If you feel like they might have depression or another mental health problem, you can refer them. Like I said, have counselors or psychologists, psychiatrists as referral sources. So you can refer them to get the help that they need so they can have themselves squared away before they start trying to raise another person in the world. To determine if a problem is likely to exist, strengths and difficulties questionnaire, pediatric symptoms checklist, the MAISY to obtain more specific information about a youth at risk. You can do the CAFAS, the CBCL, the CALOCUS, and the DISC. And your counselor or psychologist is going to have to be the one to do that, unless you are a licensed counselor, psychologist, and also a life coach. There are some out there. The Beck Depression Inventory, Conners Scales, and other self-reporting instruments. And you can make up your own little questionnaire if you're your life coach to help you fill that out. You can go online and look at different things. And if they come out where it looks to be that way, then you certainly want to refer them to a counselor or a psychologist to get the proper testing that they need. School districts refer to usually a student program or get a direct referral for a psychotherapist if there's a problem. The child and adolescent psychiatrists or psychologists or their primary care physician can give you a referral to go. Special benefits of school and based mental health. Some schools have good counselors, some not so much. You just have to talk with the parents and figure it out. And certainly, like I said, you want to have a clinical counselor as a referral source. Key areas of concern involve poor or worsening relationships, because, that is an indicator of depression. Multiple impairments and deterioration in functioning. Again, that's evidence of low self-esteem and depression. Regular use of alcohol as substances. This is where, they should not be using any alcohol or substances if they're pregnant. So this is an indicator that they do not want to be pregnant, and they're looking to end the pregnancy, if not harm themselves. An increased likelihood of both psychiatric and drug and alcohol problems among youth subjected to trauma. If they've already been subjected to trauma, they're already traumatized. They already probably have low self-esteem and impaired mental functioning. They're probably not on a developmental level where they're supposed to be. So you definitely, again, want to have a counselor or a mental health professional as a referral source, because, this is going to complicate things for them. And, there are girls who have had to have children that they didn't want, some as young as, 12 years old. And this has caused them further trauma in their life, and they end up in-house in a mental institution because the parents insisted they had to have this baby, and I think that's a shame. I think that's a true shame. Factors identified below as warning signs to crisis may present to lesser degree earlier on. Some common warning signs for suicide risk. Change in eating and sleeping habits. Now, they're going to be eating more. They might eat less in the first trimester if they're sick. Sleeping habits, again, they're going to be more tired, though, because they're pregnant, but keep an eye on things. Withdrawal from their family, friends, and regular activities. That's a sign of, depression. Loss of interest in pleasurable activities. Again, that's a sign of depression. Marked personality change or shift in developmental progression. They might regress a little bit, start acting like a little kid, or decide their life is over now, they have to be an adult. Both things are not good. There should be a continuum. Increase in oppositional behavior. They might decide to start asserting themselves. Rebellion and running away. They're putting themselves and their child in danger. This is also a sign of depression. Violent behavior. This is a sign of, a definite anger issue. They're upset probably with their home situation, with the situation they're in. Again, that's something that should be monitored. Unusual neglect of their personal appearance, like staying in bed all the time, not washing properly, not combing your hair, whereas before they wore jewelry and makeup, not doing that on a daily basis. That's an indicator of depression. Drug and alcohol use or appearing intoxicated. Again, they're trying to self-soothe or to poison the child so they do not have to have it. And other risky behaviors, walking train trellises while you're pregnant, things of that nature is not good. It's not good anytime, especially while you're pregnant. Persistent boredom, difficulty concentrating, decline in the quality of their schoolwork, frequent physical symptoms or complaints. Now, they're going to have some of those because their body's changing and growing with the child. Including stomach aches. Again, that's normal. Headaches and fatigue. That's normal for a pregnant woman, as any of y'all who've ever been pregnant know. Inability to tolerate praise or rewards. That's a sign of low self-esteem. I've struggled with that all my life, because I was told, I was pretty much nothing, and I was owned, and so whenever I would get praise and rewards, I had a little problem. I would just say thank you, and I'd be uncomfortable with it. Things to consider when there seems to be some depression or suicidal tendencies present. Obviously, possible suicide, trauma or response to acute stress. significant loss or rejection, substance abuse, psychosis, connect with the child and the family, and make any needed mental health referrals. Like I said, that's where your counselor, your psychotherapist is going to come in handy. Additional considerations involving youth suicide and trauma. Youth suicide. Most children and youth with suicidal ideation and the majority who engage in self-destructive behavior one time are not so concerned about dying and not completely committed to this outcome. So you have some that are serious about it and some not so serious about it. And that's why you have to keep an eye on things and see if there's a difference. Therefore, adult and peer support can be life-saving. Again, you want to step in and say, hey, Mom, Dad, she's talking like this. You need to keep an eye on things, because sometimes when they talk like this, they actually do this. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. Consistent with the federal mandate and based on independent recognition of need, youth prevention, suicide prevention work groups, and suicide prevention plans. Again, some of the schools have these, some of them don't. Work groups draw from the expertise of many committed stakeholders, and if your school has one of these, you can get involved. Community participation in suicide prevention efforts is one of many identified goals. This effort is an ongoing work in progress. And again, like I said, you can hold programs, you can, if you're part of a nonprofit, or you can get a nonprofit on board, you can actually reserve space in a public library, and make a program about this and present it to the public, because this is something that we need to keep an eye on. We're losing our young people. Recent research indicates that adolescents with multiple suicide attempts differ in some clinical characteristics from those adolescents who make only a single attempt. The following are differentiating characteristics of multiple suicide attempters. High levels of depressive symptoms, greater hopelessness, higher levels of anger, greater affect dysfunction and dysregulation, major mutilation. So, kids that are burning themselves, cutting themselves, that's a problem. Trauma. Children and adolescents with significant trauma history, neglect, all forms of abuse, witnessing violence, bullying, community violence, are at higher risk of depression, impulsivity, and substance abuse. They are often, but not invariably, more vulnerable and less resilient. So they're going to have a harder time, stepping up to the plate and getting their developmental tasks taken care of before this child comes. Children and youth frequently do not disclose information about trauma. Maybe due to lack of trust of adults, fear of consequences, or perceiving life events to have been routine and typical. Because sometimes these teens have just pushed it back and repressed it, and they haven't dealt with them themselves. So they're not really ready to come out and talk to you about it. There's an emerging field of trauma-sensitive and trauma-informed care. Familiarity with those ideas is important for all caregivers and educators. And there are many different programs. There's resilience that you can view. There's a lot of different programs that you can get involved in. Darkness to Light, to try and help these kids if you're going to be coaching pregnant teenagers. Key ideas include traumatized youth need respect and support, not shame and humiliation. Need to understand the youth from his or her life perspective. Since what appears pathological may have been or still be adaptive. Need for calm, predictable environments, because any coping mechanism or defense mechanism came about because at the time it helped them to survive the situation they were in. Now, there comes a time when these things no longer serve you or they hold you back, and that's when they need to be dealt with. This always doesn't happen in the teen years. Sometimes this won't happen until they develop higher functioning in their 20s. General considerations involving pregnancy. There is clear evidence based on prospective studies that women's mental health during pregnancy is associated with fetal development and infant birth outcomes. Women with high levels of stress, low levels of support, psychiatric disorder, and/or significant psychiatric symptoms are affected directly by the stress and are also more likely to engage in negative health-related behaviors or lifestyles during pregnancy, which may involve a poor diet, inappropriate amounts of physical activity, too much or too little, smoking, alcohol use, drug use. When reporting high levels of stress and/or low levels of social support, or double the risk of premature birth or low birth weight babies, even after adjusting for other risk factors. There is a racial disparity in the U.S. regarding negative reproduction outcomes. African American women are 2 times more likely than Caucasian women to experience prematurity. Other potential negative pregnancy, birth, neonatal, and developmental outcomes, in addition to prematurity and low birth weight, to maternal stress include the following: spontaneous abortion, complications during delivery, congenital abnormalities, motor deficits, cognitive deficits, social emotional deficits, possible subsequent vulnerability of the child to adult disorders. Okay. In general, pregnancy is not necessarily a time of increased well-being for women, though it might be for some. It wasn't for me. I know friends that it was great for them. They loved it. Nor does it confer protection against mood disorders or depression or other psychiatric disturbances. In general, pregnancy is not necessarily a time of increased well-being. Depression in some women during pregnancy is a major concern. Given its potential impact on the woman during and after pregnancy and its potentially adverse effects on the fetus as well. Identified prevalence rates of depression during pregnancy are misleading since screening of pregnant women is uncommon. Very few primary care physicians or obstetricians recognize it. And symptoms, although significant, may not satisfy full criteria for a diagnosis. Diagnosis of affective disorders in research population, 6 to 16%. Rate of actual diagnosis may be less than 1% of pregnant women because the doctors are concerned with taking care of this baby, not with the mother's mental health. Actual rate of depressive or affective symptoms can be as high as 51%. So again, if you're coaching pregnant teens or just pregnant women, think about that. That, with the increased hormone levels and problems, up to half of these women can have depressive symptoms. That goes back to you need that counselor or psychotherapist as a referral source. Rates are even higher in poor minority women, African American and Hispanic women, and adolescents, especially unmarried girls, because they don't have a partner. All right, that was our bell, so that's all for now. I hope you found this educational and informational, and I will leave the link if you'd like to help support this educational outreach. And that's all for now. Until next time.